It was meant to be just another reunion night, but what exploded backstage turned into the most shocking moment of the entire season. The air inside the studio was heavy with tension, but no one could have predicted what was about to unfold. Mendeecees Harris and Yandy Smith. Harris had been walking on thin ice for weeks. Their smiles looked strained, their chemistry off, and the whispers behind the scenes were getting louder. Then it happened. Right after the cameras stopped rolling, chaos broke loose. Voices echoed through the narrow hallway. What started as low murmurs grew into a full-blown shouting match. Crew members rushed toward the noise, castmates froze mid-conversation, and the producers' faces went pale. This wasn't scripted television anymore. This was real. A phone camera caught the moment Yandy stormed off, eyes blazing with anger, while Mendeecees followed, shouting something that made everyone's jaw drop. The energy backstage shifted instantly. It wasn't just drama. It was heartbreak, betrayal, and pride colliding all at once. What no one knew in that instant was that they were witnessing the start of the end, the moment. Everything they'd built for years began to crack. The energy inside the reunion building that night was already unsettling. Even before the cameras rolled, people could feel something was off. Yandy and Mendeecees weren't moving like the power couple everyone once admired. Cast members whispered quietly, watching how distant they were. Normally they arrived hand in hand, laughing, setting couple goals for the group. But this time they entered separately, barely exchanging a word. Their cold body language said everything the cameras hadn't captured yet. Yandy sat with her shoulders tight, lips pressed, eyes avoiding his direction. Mendeecees kept glancing at his phone, scrolling as if he didn't even notice her sitting beside him. It wasn't just the crew who caught it. Fans watching from home began noticing too. Social media lit up within minutes. "Something's off," one fan tweeted. "They don't even look like they like each other anymore." The host tried to lighten the mood, cracking jokes and steering the conversation, but nothing worked. Every response between them was clipped, cautious, almost rehearsed. It felt like everyone was walking on glass, waiting for something to break. What no one realized was that the storm was already brewing behind those polite smiles. The moment the cameras paused for a break, that silent tension would finally erupt. And once it did, there'd be no going back. The second the director called cut, everyone exhaled in relief. But that relief didn't last long. As the bright studio lights dimmed and crew members began clearing the set, Yandy stood up without a word. She moved quickly, her heels clicking against the floor, heading straight for the hallway that led backstage. Mendeecees hesitated for a split second, then followed, his expression tight. The production assistants exchanged nervous looks. Something was clearly off. The hallway lights were low, just a faint yellow glow spilling across the floor. Yandy stopped near the dressing room door, turning around just as Mendeecees caught up. "You really gonna do that out there?" she snapped, voice sharp but low enough not to draw attention yet. Mendeecees took a breath, trying to stay calm. "Do what, Yandy? You the one acting like this?" She crossed her arms, staring him down. The tone was icy, the kind of tone only two people who knew each other too well could use. "You sat there making me look stupid pretending everything's fine," she said. Mendeecees shook his head, running a hand over his face. "You want to talk about stupid? You went and told production our business." That line hit like a grenade. Yandy stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "I told the truth, because you don't know how to." Their voices started rising now, the calm breaking. A nearby sound tech froze mid-step, realizing what was happening. Mendeecees' voice deepened. "You don't air out your man like that on TV?" Yandy fired back. "Then stop giving me things to air out." The tension snapped completely. Crew members began drifting closer, pretending to check mics and wires, but really listening. Two camera operators exchanged a quick look. They knew better than to start filming. But everyone's instinct said the same thing. Something was about to blow. By the time Mendeecees' voice echoed down the hall, the argument had become impossible to ignore. "You think you the only one holding this family together?" he shouted. Yandy's jaw clenched as she fired back. "I am the only one holding it together." You just show up when it benefits you." The words cut through the hallway like a slap. A makeup artist froze halfway out of the dressing room, clutching a brush in midair. The atmosphere turned electric, every sentence louder than the last. Mendeecees stepped forward, his hands moving as he talked, trying to defend himself, but his tone only made it worse. Yandy's eyes flashed with fury. "Don't raise your voice at me," she warned. "I'm raising it because you stopped listening," Mendeecees shouted, slamming his palm against the wall. The loud crack made everyone flinch. A production assistant gasped quietly. The echo carried, pulling more people toward the scene. Stage managers, makeup crew, even a few castmates who peeked around the corner. The hallway was now crowded with whispers, phones half hidden, people pretending to check messages while recording in silence. "This ain't the time," one producer whispered, stepping in slowly, hands raised like a referee. "Let's take 5, cool off." "No," Yandy interrupted sharply. "He's been taking 5 for years." Mendeecees' face twisted with frustration. "You think you perfect? You think you ain't done dirt too?" The room fell silent. That accusation shifted everything. Yandy's expression hardened, tears welling but refusing to fall. "Say it," she said, voice trembling. "Say what you mean, since you love talking in front of everybody." Mendeecees' chest heaved. For a moment, he didn't answer. The silence was unbearable. Then he muttered, "You already know." The way he said it, low, bitter, told everyone there was more beneath the surface. The crowd exchanged nervous glances. This wasn't for TV anymore. The couple that once symbolized strength had become a raw, public unraveling. Producers signaled to security to clear the hallway, but the damage was done. The screaming had stopped, but the silence that followed felt even louder. Everyone knew something permanent had just broken, and the night was far from over. The hallway was chaos disguised as concern. Crew members whispered into earpieces, producers darted between rooms, and the rest of the cast stood frozen, unsure whether to comfort, intervene, or just stay out of it. One makeup artist quietly said, "This ain't gonna end good," while another whispered, "Keep rolling sound just in case." Even though the cameras had stopped, the drama didn't care about production schedules. 2 producers, clearly the senior ones, stepped in fast, trying to calm the situation before it hit social media. "Okay, everybody back up," one said firmly, waving her hands. "Give them space." But no one moved far. Curiosity kept everyone glued to the moment. Mendeecees was pacing like a storm trapped in a small room, while Yandy stood planted, expression cold but trembling. A production assistant whispered, "Should we call security?" And the lead producer nodded discreetly. Within minutes, a couple of network reps were on site, speaking quietly but urgently into their phones. They knew how dangerous this could be, not just emotionally but contractually. A full-blown public altercation could cost reputations and deals. Castmates like Erica and Rich exchanged uneasy glances, whispering, "Man, this is bad," while the makeup crew gathered their kits, pretending to tidy up as they listened. The host, standing nearby, shook his head slowly, muttering, "This ain't what we signed up for tonight." The production floor had become a pressure cooker, and everyone was waiting for one thing, for either Yandy or Mendeecees to walk away first. Every second of silence felt like it stretched forever. Then Mendeecees suddenly stepped back, shaking his head with a bitter laugh. "I'm done with this," he said under his breath, and the whole room shifted. Mendeecees turned, still muttering, and walked straight down the hallway. His footsteps echoed hard against the tile, each one sounding like a door slamming shut. Crew members stepped aside as he passed, their eyes following him until he disappeared into the dressing area. The second he was gone, everything went eerily quiet. The tension hung thick, almost physical. Yandy didn't move right away. She stood still, breathing slow and deep, her eyes fixed on the empty space where he'd just been. The producers watched carefully, unsure whether to comfort her or leave her be. A makeup artist gently offered a tissue, but Yandy didn't take it. "I'm fine," she said softly, even though her voice cracked at the edges. The hallway lights buzzed faintly, the only sound in the air. Behind her, someone whispered, "Should we stop filming tomorrow?" Another producer sighed. Let's just get through tonight. Yandy finally turned toward her dressing room, shoulders squared, wiping her face before anyone could see. Every step she took was measured, like she was rebuilding her strength with each movement. Before going inside, she looked back once, toward the direction Mendeecees had gone, then whispered to herself, "I'm not protecting him anymore." The words were quiet, but everyone nearby heard them. And just like that, the silence turned heavy again, because everyone knew this wasn't just a fight. It was an ending. Inside her dressing room, Yandy sat alone in front of the mirror, makeup half smeared, the reflection staring back at her looking more like a stranger than the woman the world thought they knew. Her phone buzzed nonstop on the counter. Messages, missed calls, and notifications lighting up the screen. Producers were trying to reach her, publicists were already drafting statements, and a few castmates were quietly checking in with short texts like, "You good?" But Yandy didn't respond. She was calm now, calm in that eerie, dangerous way that comes after breaking. She whispered to herself, "I'm not protecting him anymore." The same sentence over and over like a vow. Each repetition steadied her. For years, she'd been the peacekeeper, the one smoothing edges, keeping the brand polished. But tonight, it had all spilled over, and something in her had shifted. The door cracked open slightly and a producer peeked in. "Yandy, we need to talk about what just happened." Without turning her head, she replied, "You can talk. I'm done explaining." The producer nodded and quietly backed out. Minutes later, the first leak started. Short clips from someone's phone had already found their way onto social media. One video showed Yandy's voice, shaking but strong, saying, "Then stop giving me things to air out." Within seconds, the clip spread like wildfire across Twitter and TikTok. Comments flooded in, some defending her, others dragging Mendeecees. The reunion hadn't even finished airing, and the internet was already picking sides. Yandy looked down at her buzzing phone again, finally sighing as another notification appeared. Yandy Speaks trending #1. She exhaled slowly, whispering one last time, "I'm not protecting him." This time, it wasn't a declaration of anger. It was release. She finally meant it. Across the building, Mendeecees sat in his own dressing room, the door closed and the noise of the crew muffled behind the walls. He was pacing back and forth over and over, jaw tight, eyes distant. His phone buzzed too, but he ignored it. A producer knocked softly. "You okay, man?" Mendeecees didn't answer right away. "Yeah," he finally muttered, though his voice betrayed him. The truth was, he wasn't okay. He'd spent years trying to project control, the man who always had the last word. But tonight, everything cracked open. He rubbed his hands over his face, replaying every word that had just been shouted. "You don't air out your man like that on TV." The line echoed in his head like a regret he couldn't swallow. He grabbed his jacket from the chair, threw it down again, and sank into the couch. The silence felt unbearable. Slowly, he scrolled through his phone, and that's when he saw it. The clip! Someone had already leaked their fight. His face froze as the comment count climbed by the second. Fans were dissecting every second, every expression, every tone. "Mendeecees guilty," one tweet said. "You can tell by how he walks away." He threw the phone onto the table, running both hands over his head. For the first time, the weight of his choices hit him hard. This wasn't just a fight. This was exposure. Years of quiet resentment, broken trust, and pride that had never been checked were now out in the open. Mendeecees leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. "How do we even get here?" he whispered. But there was no answer, only the sound of distant voices outside, and the creeping realization that maybe this time he couldn't fix it. After nearly 30 minutes of tension, 2 senior producers decided to step in. They knew the night couldn't end with both of them storming off. The cameras might have stopped rolling, but this reunion was far from over. One producer went to Yandy's room, another to Mendeecees, and after some convincing, both agreed to a private talk in one of the side lounges. The energy was fragile from the start. Yandy sat upright, composed but cold, while Mendeecees leaned back with crossed arms, his expression unreadable. The producers kept their tone gentle. "We just want to clear the air before this becomes bigger than it already is," one said. Mendeecees shrugged, muttering, "It's already big." "Y'all seen the leaks?" Yandy exhaled sharply. "And now you care about the leaks more than what caused them." Mendeecees glared at her. "You ain't innocent, Yandy. You've been telling half the truth for weeks." "Half the truth?" she repeated, her calm finally cracking. "You mean the part where I had to hold everything down while you were out doing God knows what?" The producer quickly raised a hand. "Hey, let's not—" But it was too late. The conversation spiraled again, louder this time. Mendeecees stood up mid-sentence, voice rising. "You think I owe you something for being my wife?" Yandy shot back instantly. "No, but you owe me respect." The words hit the room like thunder. Mendeecees clenched his jaw, shook his head, and walked out again, slamming the door. The producers just stared, defeated. "We can't fix this tonight," one finally said. Yandy didn't respond. She just sat there in silence, eyes wet, whispering under her breath. He still doesn't get it. When filming resumed, the atmosphere on stage was completely different. The bright lights couldn't hide the tension anymore. The cast sat uneasily on the reunion couch, glances darting between Yandy and Mendeecees, waiting to see how they'd act after what everyone had heard backstage. The host sensed it too. "All right," he began carefully. "There's a lot of energy in the room tonight." Yandy gave a small, practiced smile, but her eyes stayed down. Mendeecees leaned forward, elbows on knees, face stone still. The silence stretched painfully long. Even the audience, usually quick to cheer or clap, stayed quiet. Finally, the host broke the ice. "There's been talk," he said slowly, "about some tension, about things getting personal. Do either of you want to address that?" Yandy looked up, her voice calm but heavy. "We've had issues, real ones. Not TV, not storylines. Real life." Mendeecees sighed and nodded slightly, but didn't speak. "It's hard when you love somebody," she continued, "and you feel like that love doesn't protect you anymore." The room went completely still. Even Mendeecees glanced sideways at her, eyes softening for just a second before hardening again. The host leaned in. "So where do things stand now?" Yandy hesitated. Her eyes glistened under the lights. "I think I've done all the protecting I can do." That line hit like a punch to the chest. The audience murmured quietly. Cameras zoomed in. Mendeecees swallowed hard, finally saying, "It's crazy, man. You give your all, and people still paint you like the villain." Yandy turned slightly toward him. "Then maybe stop giving them the paint." The crowd reacted. Gasps, soft "oh" sounds rippled across the set. The host quickly wrapped the segment, but the damage was visible. Mendeecees leaned back, expression unreadable, while Yandy stared straight ahead. Between them sat years of history, and now a silence louder than any argument. When the cameras finally wrapped for the night, the building emptied slowly. Mendeecees waited outside Yandy's dressing room, unsure whether to knock or walk away. After a long pause, he tapped lightly. "Can we talk?" he asked, voice low. Yandy didn't answer right away, but eventually said, "Door's open." Mendeecees stepped in carefully, closing it behind him. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the vanity lights. Yandy sat on the couch, eyes tired but calm. Mendeecees stood in front of her, hands in his pockets. "I ain't come to argue," he started. I don't want it to end like that." Yandy looked up slowly. "Like what?" he sighed. "With everybody thinking we hate each other." She shook her head. "Mendeecees, this isn't about what people think. It's about what's real." The silence stretched again. He nodded slightly, staring at the floor. "I love you," he said softly. Yandy smiled faintly, but there was no joy in it. "I know," she whispered, "but love isn't enough anymore." The words landed heavy, final. Mendeecees blinked, taken aback. "So that's it?" She stood, straightening her jacket. "That's it." For the first time, he didn't chase the conversation. He just let her walk past him, the quiet between them saying everything words couldn't. Quiet between them saying everything words couldn't. As Yandy walked down the long studio hallway for the last time that night, Every step echoed like punctuation on a story that had finally ended. Crew members watched in silence, knowing better than to speak. Mendeecees stood by the exit, hands in his pockets, eyes down. Their paths crossed for just a second. No words, no glance. Just that quiet acknowledgement that something once powerful had burned out. By the time Yandy reached the parking lot, her phone was blowing up again. Headlines were already spinning. Backstage blow-up rocks reunion? Yandy and Mendeecees done for good? Clips were everywhere. Fans dissecting body language, reposting every tense exchange. Hashtags trended worldwide. Yandy speaks, Char Mendeecees meltdown, and love and hip-hop reunion. Within hours, influencers, blogs, and even castmates had joined the conversation. Some defended her, saying she'd held the relationship down too long. Others accused her of using the show for sympathy. But through all the noise, one thing was clear. The illusion was gone. This wasn't TV anymore. It was raw truth broadcast to millions. Yandy finally got into her car, closing the door slowly before exhaling the breath she'd been holding all night. Her last glance in the rearview mirror caught the reflection of the studio fading behind her, the place where everything began and ended. For fans who had followed their journey from love to heartbreak, the story had come full circle. And in that silence after the storm, one question lingered. Can love survive fame? Or does fame always destroy what love builds? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more behind-the-scenes stories that reveal the truth no camera ever shows. Because sometimes what happens after the show is the real show.